up, everybody? It's Ericka Sallee of True Synergy. Welcome back to my channel. As a personal and professional development coach, I help women and organizations to figure out the barriers that stand in the way of their success. And so if these are conversations that you want to hear along with the strategies to move you through those barriers, then I do encourage you to subscribe to this channel, share it out, and then turn your notifications on so that you are in the know when brand new videos are uploaded. So the topic for today is the fourth installment of a 10-part series that I'm calling the 10 best ideas to jumpstart you to your brand new year. And if you haven't seen the previous videos, then I encourage you to go and check those out. All of the links to those are in the description of this video. But to continue the conversation, the topic for today is be willing to be brainwashed. Let me say that again. Be willing to be brainwashed. And so I want to talk about this idea of brainwashing from three different perspectives. The first is the traditional meaning of what we understand brainwashing to be. The second is how to shift. And then the last piece is how to create a new framework of brainwashing, okay? So hopefully you're taking notes. If you are in a place where you're sitting still, I want you to go ahead and write these things down because you'll want to be able to come back to this conversation as you go through not just this year, but as you continue on your transformation journey. So let's talk about the traditional understanding of brainwashing. So when I think about this, the first thing that comes to mind is if you're watching a movie and you see something apocalyptic, right? And you're looking at people walking around sort of like in a daze because they've been tranced by a person or by something. And so they're kind of under the rule or under the thumb of whatever that thing is. So brainwashing is just that, is when you and I take on the thoughts, the ideas of someone else. And it could be from the context of someone who really is trying to manipulate in order for you to do what they want you to do, in order for you to think the way that they think so that you can do their bidding or so that you can speak on behalf of them. But that comes from the thoughts that you have that person is really embodying or passing on to you. And sometimes it happens in such a way that we don't even recognize who we are or what we stand for because we've been manipulated by someone else so much. So that's one form of brainwashing where we're really like taking on the ideas, even if we don't actually believe them ourselves, or even if it's not something that we really want to do, but because we're so influenced by someone else's ability to utilize his or her power over us, then that becomes a form of brainwashing. Another form of brainwashing is in a different context where you might say, well, is it because of my cultural upbringing, the way that I was taught, the way that the experiences that I've had, those are the things that help to shape what I think. You may have heard the conversation that I talked about in another video where I use the example of, back in the day when my ex-husband, at the time he was my fiance, we were in the kitchen cooking breakfast and he was making breakfast meat one kind of way and I was used to it being made another kind of way. So I was used to that framework of this is how you do it. And so that could be a form of brainwashing, just a way that your brain has been taught to understand things. Not necessarily from a manipulative standpoint as the first example, but really just to say, based on what I know, based on my experience, this is how my brain has begun to process how I show up in different areas of my life. You might even have had experiences where, let's say for instance, in your career, perhaps you haven't been as successful as you planned to be, or you've kind of gone from different types of jobs and different industries and you haven't found that fulfillment. And because of that, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, if it hasn't happened for me yet, then why would I think that it's going to happen for me now? Or why should I even try to do something different or to better myself to get to a different level? Your brain is telling you that because of those experiences, there's no way that you can possibly have anything different. The same is true in relationships. As say if you've been in relationships that haven't been fulfilling and you're like, oh my gosh, there must be something wrong with me. And your brain begins to tell you there's no possible way that you can find fulfillment or joy or good companionship because it hasn't happened. So all of our experiences and all of the things that we're taught in our upbringing help to build that mindset that we have. And so when you think about that, just this, think about it from this perspective. So I have a piece of paper, and on this piece of paper, I have all of these things, right? So from all of that, it's like, oh my gosh, there's the mindset, there's the people I'm connected to that makes me say, oh, I don't have it, I don't have enough, I can't do it, I'll never be able to do it. And so all of this stuff, and just a whole bunch of just stuff all in your mind. So just think of this piece of paper as your mind, taking all of this in. And you begin to build that mindset. Your brain starts to think about things in the way that you've been conditioned just because that's what you know. It also reminds me of growing up. You know, I remember as a kid, like we didn't go on vacations. We went to the beach and we had family time at a family member's house. And so I didn't know what vacation was. And the reason I didn't know what it was because I remember my mom as a single mother struggled. And so there was not extra money to go on vacation. There wasn't extra money to do the things that we needed to do sometimes, let alone take a vacation. And so my mindset for a period of time was, well, you know, we can't do that because we can't afford it. And so you may be able to identify with that same type of example, whether it's vacations or something else. But your experience helps to shape what that mind and your brain begins to take in. So if this is what the traditional idea of brainwashing is, with all of the things that our brain begins to process, what if I said to you, well, let's look at it from a different perspective. There's nothing on here, right? This is a blank page. And so this is what I would call the shift. So you might say, well, gosh, with all of that experiences and all the things I've been through and the things that I've learned, the things that I've been taught, you mean I'm supposed to just have a blank page, just have a shift? And I'm saying yes. And as you are watching this right now, I want you to consider that this very conversation is either the shift that you need to move you from those old ways of thinking, or it is the continuum of perhaps how you've begun your shift. Okay? So the shift then moves you into a new focus. So think about it this way. If this is the old way of thinking, being brainwashed, and this is the shift that I get to use in order to get to something different, then on the other side of that is a new way of thinking. Okay? So now when we talk about brainwashing, it is really clearing your brain, clearing your mind of the things and the way that you've been thinking and holding on to, so that you can begin to embrace a new way of thinking. And I know that that is not an easy process, because if we've been conditioned to think a certain way for such a long time, then for us to think that it's going to happen immediately is probably a myth. It takes some training and it takes some adaptation to say, oh wait, I can think about this in a different kind of way. So let me give you a couple of examples. So in this moving, the shift, this changing the way you think. So let's say, okay, if I say to myself, oh, okay, I have to embrace a new way of thinking about a certain type of situation. So I want to give you a couple of different ways to process that. So you may have heard me talk about in a previous conversation, if you're a client or if you've seen other videos or if you've seen me post things on social media, you know that I often refer to the fact that we have 4 specific areas that every single part of our lives touch. And I learned this from my coach, Lisa Nichols, and I have held on to this, and really embraced this and kind of expanded it into my own level of processing. So there's 4 specific areas. 1 is our relationships, 2 is our finances, 3 is our spirituality, and then the 4th is our health. Okay, so health, relationships, finances, spirituality. So if you think about everything that we do is going to touch on one or all four of those areas just by the sheer nature of life. Okay, and it's funny to think about that because with so many things in life, it's like, oh, really, everything that we do does really fall into four buckets. So think about that. So let's take one of those buckets and let's take the finance bucket. And perhaps you have in your mindset, the brainwashing part is, you know what? I have tried to save money so many times and I have not been successful. So your mind is telling you, well, you know what? Because I haven't been successful, because that's been my experience, you've been brainwashed or conditioned to think that you absolutely positively cannot save money. So if today is the clean slate, and this conversation at this moment in time is your opportunity to shift, then the way you do that is you start to refocus how you think about money. And in order to do that, you go back and say, well, how did I even get to this point? Like, what is it that makes me feel like saving money is so difficult, is so impossible? And to do that, you go back to the example that I gave a few minutes ago. You might say, well, growing up, that's how it was for us. Like, we didn't have a lot of money. There was no extra. I can remember, personally for me, I remember all of my friends wearing the name brand and designer stuff, and mom could not afford that. So I had, the knockoff stuff. So my relationship with money was such that, oh my gosh, you know what? There's not enough of it. We don't have enough. We can't. So when you think about making that shift, you can say, well, where does that even come from? Yeah, I know I tried to save money last year or the year before, 5 years ago. But if you take it back even further than that, see, a lot of times our experience is not just about the moment that we're in. It's not just about what may have happened last week, last month, last year, even 5 years ago. It may track all the way back to something even further than that in our upbringing. So when you think about embracing this new idea of brainwashing, it's really flipping the script. So if you say, oh, well, the reason why I'm brainwashed to think that I cannot save money and I don't have enough of it is because growing up, I didn't have enough. And so that was my way of thinking. That was my way of being. But now you're telling me, wait a minute, I can reverse that. And understanding where it came from, now I can make the connection and say, but in this present moment, if I begin to say, but wait, that was then, and you start to change the mindset by saying, I am able to save money because this is a different time. I am able to utilize the resources that I have because I'm able to gain those resources so I can work within the confines of what my mind is beginning to tell me. So when your mind starts to tell you that I am able to save money, then it starts to move you into a new realm of the shift, which then moves you to, oh, if I think that I can save money, then I can begin to start doing the things that will allow me to do just that. Okay, so it's really about understanding, well, where does it come from? If this is the way that I think, then how can I shift that and then move into a new dynamic? Okay, so that's one reference to the money part of the four things that I mentioned: the money, the finances, spirituality, and relationships. So let's say if let's utilize the health part of that dynamic. So if you say, okay, if you've been brainwashed to believe that you can't lose the weight that you want to lose, or if you've been brainwashed to say, you know what, this has never worked for me, there's no possible way I can try different kinds of foods because this is all I know, this is what I grew up on, this is what I'm used to, this is what we always make. Your brain is telling you that's it right there. But in order to take on something new, it's making that shift to say, well, wait a minute, why am I thinking that? Where is it coming from? And so you might say, well, gosh, I remember like growing up, this is, we used to have the big family meals and we used to do all of those things and just kind of laugh and have fun, which is a good thing. But now I'm thinking I have to do something different. I have to do more to take care of me. So you have to undo that mindset to say, this is how it has to be. This is the only way that you can enjoy food is if I make it this way. And so shifting to say, all right, does this serve me any longer? What you might say is, well, back in the day when I was younger and, I was always on the move and on the go, I could eat what I wanted because I was always moving around and, I was young, I could do that. Now you might be in a different age bracket and your body may be telling you that you have to do something different. So to brainwash yourself into thinking, you know what, that's how I used to do it, that's not going to work for me anymore. So now I've got to think something different. So now I have to say, I am capable of being healthy. I am capable of making new choices. I am capable of managing my body, taking care of myself. When you begin to think that way, then it begins to shift you again into a new level of, well, how do I actually step into doing it so that I'm matching up what I'm thinking now with what I'm doing that is going to be better for me. Okay? So it's really undoing some of the things. Like if you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do that. Well, your I'll never be able to do that is connected to some other experiences where you haven't been able to do that. But the shift says, you know what? Let me just erase all of that and say, I am able to do. I am able to do because, and then you start to fill in the blanks. See, it's really just saying to yourself, you know what? If these ways of thinking no longer serve me, if these ways of thinking are not helping me to be as healthy as I need to be, if these ways of thinking are not helping me to connect with the right people that I need to connect with, if these ways of thinking are keeping me in a place where I'm not really moving forward to seek out my best, then it's time for me to think a new way. And so one of the ways to really take on a new mindset, or the second way, because the first way is to really figure out, well, where does it even come from? How did I even get to this point? And am I basing everything that I need and want to do to better myself on old data? Okay? Old data. It may be part of your history. And yes, you may have had bad experiences. We've all had them. Yes, there may have been challenges that have presented themselves to cause you to think that way. That's old data. So the question is, in this moment in time, if you're trying to embrace new data, then it's really a clearing of the mind in such a way that says, oh, wait, if I'm trying to clear out the cobwebs, if I'm trying to move out all this old stuff, if I'm trying to take this junk, here it is on this side, toss it away. Now I've got to think a new way. And so it's first connecting, why do I think that way? And is that now serving me? The second thing is, sometimes in order to brainwash yourself for the good of what you need and want to do and deserve to do for yourself, it's about connecting with new voices. It's about connecting with new ideas. There are tons of things out on the internet that sometimes don't serve us well, but there's lots of stuff out there that feeds us, that helps to nurture that way of thinking so that we can make that shift. And so I'm inviting you to connect with the right ideas, the right thoughts, the right words. If it's books, if it's podcasts, if it's positive things on social media, stay connected to this channel so that you can get the things to help you to begin to think a new way, so that you can embrace whatever that brand new version of you is in this year, and yes, in the years to come. There's so many things that that we can share about this topic. And one of the things that I want to make sure that I leave you with is the fact that you and I have to recognize that if we've been in a way of thinking for such a long time, that this is just one part of the process. And it's a continual effort to rethink. It even goes down to, let's say you've been connected with a group of people for a really long time, and they have a certain way of thinking about other people just because of their history, their upbringing. Perhaps they're not used to connecting with people who don't look like them. And you are in a group and you hear conversations that really kind of sound a little harsh or sometimes mean because they're acting out of their own brainwashing. And so you and I get to say to ourselves, ooh, I hear that and I hear what they're thinking that's coming out of their mouths, but does that serve in a good way? Does it serve the greater good? Is it kind? Is it a way that we should think about what human dignity looks like? And so you then get to decide, am I going to allow the brainwashing from one area to influence me in such a way that I don't make good decisions that come from my thoughts and then go as a come out on with my actions? Okay, so we really have to think about how we're showing up and what thoughts we want to have in order to create the best, healthiest version of ourselves. And so here's what I want you to do as I close out this conversation, because I really could stay on this for quite a while. But I want you to think of it this way. So I want you to go back to those four areas: the health, the relationships, the finances, spirituality. And I really want you to say, what are my current thoughts about these specific areas of my life? What am I thinking about my health, and what where do those things come from? Okay, so that's the first thing. And you can break it down, put it in a quadrant, and put all four of them in their separate blocks or separate sections of a piece of paper, and say, what is my brain telling me about these four areas of my life? And then where does it come from? Is it from my family? Is it from my friends? Is it from, my associations with other organizations? Like, where does this come from? And I'm not talking about the stuff that is serving you well. I'm talking about the things that feel like, oh my gosh, this is like a barrier. I can't seem to move through this. Look at those four areas and ask yourself, what am I thinking about these four areas of my life? How did I get here? And then say, in order for me to brainwash, what are some new thoughts that I can embrace in these areas? What are some new thoughts? So if it's the fact that, oh my gosh, you know what? I've never been able to lose this weight. I'm just going to settle in. I'm not going to be able to get it off. Can't get healthy. I'm not. If those are the things that your brain is telling you, then say, well, wait a minute. If I just shift that and I begin to say, well, wait, I can be the healthiest version of myself. I can do this. I can drink more water. I can get a little bit of exercise in. I can. When you start to say, I can, your brain is starting to shift you into a new dynamic. So I want you to do that for those four areas and really work in it so that you can see, oh, I can be brainwashed in a new way. I can be brainwashed to take on new thoughts, and I can toss out the old so that I can take in the new that will serve me even better. All right, so hope you got that. I so love having this conversation. I know that we spent a little bit more time in this conversation, and it's all good. So take in what you need, and I do encourage you, if you say to yourself, okay, I'm thinking about this thing, this brainwashing thing, so I want to make sure that I do the right things with it. If that is your thought and you're trying to figure out how to apply it to you specifically, then I do encourage you to reach out to me at truesynergy.org. There's an opportunity for you to just set up some time with me, a 30 to 45 minute discovery session where you say, listen, all right, I hear you talking about this brainwashing stuff. I hear all the things that have brainwashed me, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that shift. How do I do that? So if you are looking for conversations about that, if you're trying to find a partner to help you through that, then I do encourage you to reach out. Let's talk about it and figure out if there is a connection that you and I can make to help you move along your transformation journey. So on that note, I encourage you to come back to this channel for the next conversation in the 10 best ideas to jumpstart you into your brand new year. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss any of these topics. So I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. Until I do, take care and be well.